Hi everybody, it's Janet and welcome to my channel. Today I've got a card for you and I'm also going to share some tips and tricks for Copic coloring. I won't be coloring these images entirely, but I will be sharing some good tips. So let me show you what we're going to be working with first off. This one is named the Mrs. set and it's from the Hats Off line of art impressions. And that means that it has several different hats you can put on the character, and then there are many different sentiments that go along with the hats, so some pretty cute little sayings and sentiments. One of the great things about the set is that it comes with matching dies, so you don't have to mess around with fussy cutting anything out. I do want to point out though that the magnets do not come with the set. These are what I add to all of my dies. They are magnetic vent covers from Lowe's. You buy them in a pack and then I just cut them up to fit my dies. It works really well and it's inexpensive. So when looking at all the different choices, I decided to go with the wine set because, well, hey, I like wine. Hopefully some of you do too. But don't worry, no matter what theme you pick, there's plenty of hatitude to go around. So let me show you this character that I colored up using Copics. I'll list all the colors I used in my blog post, so go check out the link to that if you want to know all the colors that I used in this character. And of course I made the hat, which is that wine hat with the bottle and the glass. So cute. Just be aware that with this hat you don't really see any of your hair, so if you're going to make this for yourself you might not want to do the hair. I don't know about the other hats if more hair shows because I've only made this one so far, but that's just one thing to know. So I'm not going to show you how to color this start to finish, but I am going to give you a few tips and tricks you might use. The first thing I'll say is that it sometimes takes more than one try to get it right. Usually for me it takes me at least twice. I like to do a practice one before I settle on the one I'm going to actually use on a card. In this case I did 3 because I couldn't figure out what I wanted for my jacket, and the first color combo I used I didn't like at all. So then I did a second one where I got to do the whole thing and decided on where I wanted my shading and different things changed for the one that I'm actually going to use on a card. So here is the second one that I did, and you can see the biggest difference here are these 2 black streaks, which kind of make it unusable the way it is. I think I'm going to try to cover it up, but for now I decided to move on and put it aside. Beyond that, you can see that there's some other differences. Mainly, I changed up the color of the collar to a pink from the blue on the earlier version. I deepened up the hearts and the grays in her pants, and I also deepened up her slippers quite a bit and also tried to add more texture to them to make them look a little bit more furry. I want to point out the buttons here. You'll see the one on the right has chunkier and shiny buttons compared to the one on the left, which is shiny but not as thick. So for the one on the right I used Nouveau drops. This is in ebony black, and you'll get a more 3D shiny look with this product. But for this one I chose to use my Glaze Pen in black. Now you'll notice this looks just like the Sakura Jelly Roll. That's because it is, but it's the glaze ink in it which dries shiny. This also dries with a little bit of dimension, but not nearly as much, of course, as the Nouveau drops do. However, on the plus side, you have a lot more control over how much you put on and where it goes, and there's very little dry time compared to using Nouveau drops, which the dry time is what got me in the second sample because I got my fingers into it and made a mess. So there you go. I also have and sometimes use the white Jelly Roll Glaze Pen. It's different in that it goes on clear but dries white and shiny, so just be aware of that. So I'm going to bring this one in again and let's look at the skin tones because they are very different. The one on the right is a lot paler than the one on the left. I've deepened up the skin tones, I've used more pink in the cheeks, and there's just a lot of additional contrast compared to the one on the right. And of course the one on the right looks a little weird because of her eyes. I haven't added the black back in for the pupils like I have on the left. So generally you can see a great big difference between the eyes on the right and the left. And what I've used is this Micron 0.03 pen to put in the details back around her eyes. give her pupils some deep color again, because when you are coloring, you inevitably, at least I do, go over those eyes a little too much and you cover them up. So here I had added white to add the white in the eye back, and then I'll show you I just add some of this micron pen to form the pupil, and then I'll use a little bit of white Jelly Roll pen to just put a tiny little dot of white back in to represent a gleam in the eye. Now it's not going to work really well on my attempt here because the black pen is not yet dried. Once it is, you can put those dots in and it really adds to the look of your character. Okay, enough of the differences there. Let's take a look now at the hat, and you'll see that I colored this up with Copics also. For the bottle I used a lot of different grays, and I also used some highlights. Prisma pencil was my choice here. It's a little bit lighter and not as bold as the pen, and sometimes I like the pencil better because of that. The pen can be overpowering. I colored the glass with a gray B0, and then I added B000, which is this very light pale color. It's called pale porcelain blue. And that gives it just a little bit of blue tinge to it and helps it stand out from the other white and gray in the background. It's such a small figure anyway, it really doesn't matter that much, but I do like the little bit of blue to make it look different. Also, you might notice that there's a little bit of glimmer in these little feather accents, and that's because I've used a Wink of Stella set. This is fine glitter dust. There's 12 in this pack, and in addition to this I have an orange, which I use quite a bit at Halloween time. So you can see this has a very fine tip, so you can get into little areas to give a little glimmer or a little emphasis where you might want to have that. So I use the bright pink and the purple on those feathers. Also, I used the gold Wink of Stella pen to put in the little strips on the top and bottom of the label, and I used my micron pen to scribble in there to make it look like it might be writing. You know, it's a distance away, you can't read it, but it gives you that same kind of feeling that there's writing on the label. So now these pieces are done, so what am I going to do with them? Well, here are some pieces I've already prepared for me to use. This is an orange, a dark orange card base. It's A2 size, and I should say, you know, it might seem odd at first to have this orange with blue, but actually if you look it up in the color wheel, orange is a complementary color of blue. So that's why it actually looks fairly decent together. If you're not that great with your colors like me, you can get some help. For example, Copic has an app that you can download on an Apple phone, and if you look up the color, it will tell you what the complementary one is. And that's what I did here. I looked up B04 for the coat, which was the darkest color, and it told me that YR18, the orange, was a complementary color. So that can be very helpful if you're not sure. Again, you can find that app from the same company that makes Copic markers. It'll give you the complementary colors, and it also very conveniently helps you track what colors you have and what colors you want to buy. Okay, so I also have a white mat that I'm going to put on top of the card base, and then I've cut another piece using the largest of the stitched rectangle dies from Art Impressions. So I want to talk about the paper I used here for a second. This comes from the Essential Craft Papers by Craft Consortium. This particular colorway is called Ink Drops Vivid. I have to take a minute and show you more about this paper. It's something I recently discovered. It's double-sided and it's 180 GSM, which is equivalent to about 65 pound weight. And as you can see, it is just beautiful. There are different tones in this. This one was called Vivid, but there's also earth and some other different kinds. And of course, this looks just like the alcohol ink backgrounds, which I'm sorry guys, I could never produce ink backgrounds that look as beautiful as this does. And it also has some of these gold colors in it. Now it's not metallic, but you would swear it is, and it's just because of the finish of the paper. It really mimics gold, but it is not. So the piece that I cut, it came from this page, and I cut it out right there. And it has a lot of the colors that I wanted to use for today. It's got some of that brownish pink, which is almost orangey, and then the blues and the pinks, and this is just beautiful, isn't it? I'll definitely include the links to where you can get this. It's not that easy to find, but it is so worth it, and I can't wait to use more of it. So now that I have the background kind of done, we'll be able to see how that lady is going to sit here just slightly to the left. And I've got a piece of vellum that I cut out with the circle double stitch dies from AI. And I'm also going to cut a frame to go around this. But what this does is kind of softens up the background a little bit and emphasizes the hat. So here I've taken two graduated circles and I've put them together with washi tape so that they're evenly spaced. And I'm going to attach this to this blue cardstock, which by the way matches really nicely with her jacket. So if you're looking for something that matches B4, I've got it for you. Just look in the product list. But in any case, I've got a circle that I'm going to keep for future use, and I'm going to poke out this frame, and it's going to fit perfectly on top of that vellum that I cut. And by the way, if you guys are looking for a very good vellum, I have another option for you. Great quality, again from cut cardstock. You'll find that in the product list. But it's a 44 pound, so it's quite a bit heavier than the typical big box store vellum you'll find. And it's got a lovely finish on it. So this is going to go behind, like I said, the lady's head and hat, and it emphasizes this hat, which I think is a good thing to do. The feathers on the hat are very thin and fine, and so it helps to emphasize that. And the hat is so cute anyway. So the next thing I'm going to do is work on my sentiment. I have the flag double stitch dies. I just added this to my stash, and I'm already finding a lot of great uses for it. In this case, I'm going to use it as a sentiment piece, and I have picked the sentiment that says "Sweet Child of Wine." So I'm going to stamp this right onto the pink flag. And the great thing about using a good quality stamp set like this one from AI is that I don't have to dig out my MISTI and stamp it a couple times. It works great. I can dare to use just my acrylic block and stamp it once and be done. So a nice advantage again of using quality products. So you can kind of see what this is going to look like now. I'm going to attach this mat and skip ahead. One thing I don't think I mentioned is that this paper has, or cardstock rather, has a nice little sheen on it. It's not very strong, but it feels so nice on the fingers, and it has just a slight gleam, but it's very, very, very subtle. It's just a wonderful paper. And now we'll be able to put this on, and because I've got the cardstock on the top, I can put the glue behind that and it's not going to show on my vellum. So that's another reason to put a frame on top of this vellum. Not to mention that I think it just, again, emphasizes the hat while it de-emphasizes just slightly in that area the wild, bright background, so we can see the hat better and her face too. So now I'm going to go ahead and attach the hat. I don't need very much glue for this. Just a little on her head will do it. You really don't have to put any behind her head. If you're using a good glue like art glitter glue, that's all you're going to need. Just a tacking is it. And then I want to position this so that the hat is overflowing a little bit on the edges of the circle border, and I want that flag to be just underneath her legs and body. So I'm going to put that down first before I lay down the character. And that'll just make sure that the ends of the flag are covered. So these pieces are now in place, and all I'm going to do is put some glue behind the character now and lay it in. I will take a minute just to say that with that vellum piece, another option you could do to decorate this up is to put a few pieces of sequin underneath the vellum before you glue the edges, and you'd create kind of a modified shaker card that way. Now what I chose to do, and you'll see in a minute, is put some pearls in this area rather than sequins underneath, but I do think it needs a little decoration. And so here are the pearls I'm going to use. I have pink and blue pearls from Eyelet Outlet. These are sticky back pearls, so I love to use them, and with any sticky back pearls I do find that they don't necessarily stick forever. Not that our cards are going to last forever either, but they tend to let go. I've noticed when I have them in storage for a month or two. So I have just gotten in the habit of laying down the pearls where I want them very lightly and then putting a dab of glue underneath them. And by doing so, then these pearls stay where you want them for a much longer time period. You'll notice that I'm using tweezers instead of a jewel picker here. I just find with the pearls in particular, the jewel picker doesn't work very well to pick it up when it's already semi-stuck to the paper. So I tend to use the tweezers for that. However, I also use enamel dots a lot, and those I tend to use the jewel pickers. And for sure, I love the jewel picker when applying sequins. I mean, to me, the jewel picker is made just for that. It works so well. So I'm about done with this card now. I hope that you've enjoyed seeing this. I had a lot of fun picking the colors. It's very joyous and happy to me, but this card could be great for someone as a birthday card, as a thank you card, as a thanks for the great party card, thanks for being you. I mean, there are just so many different options and reasons that you would send a card like this. And I just love all the bright colors and everything about it. So I hope you did too. I hope you'll take a minute, give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, and do subscribe if you haven't already. Here are a few videos you might like to watch if you enjoyed this one. And in the meantime, have a great week, and I'll be back soon with another video.